welcome to Some TV Movie Channel, your home for amazing movies and non-stop entertainment. Get ready to enjoy blockbuster hits, timeless classics, and exciting stories from every genre. Whether you love action, drama, comedy, or adventure, there's always something to watch here. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest uploads. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie experience with Some TV Movie Channel. Lilo Stitch, 2025, is an American science fiction comedy adventure film and a live-action remake of Disney's beloved 2002 animated classic of the same name. The film stars Sydney Elizabeth Agudong, Billy Magnussen, Kei Omikado, Diagari, Courtney B. Vance, Zach Galifianakis, and Mike Colter, with Chris Sanders returning as the voice of Stitch. It is directed by Dean Fleischer Camp and written by Chris Kikani Bright and Mike Van Was, based on the original story by Chris Sanders. Disney officially announced the project in October 2018. Principal photography took place from April to July 2023, with additional filming completed in February and March 2024. The film was released in theaters on May 23, 2025, and a sequel is already in development. Synopsis: the story follows the heartwarming friendship between Lilo Pelokai, a lonely young Hawaiian girl, and Stitch, a mischievous, dog-like alien genetically engineered for destruction. As they form an unlikely bond, they are pursued by alien forces while dealing with social services and the challenges of family life. Through their journey, the film highlights the importance of love, belonging, and the true meaning of Ohana, the idea that family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. Plot: on the distant planet Turo, the brilliant but reckless scientist Dr. Jumba Jokibo is convicted by the Galactic Federation for illegally creating Experiment 626, a nearly indestructible creature with extraordinary intelligence and destructive instincts. Jumba is imprisoned, while Experiment 626 is sentenced to exile. Before the punishment can be carried out, 626 escapes by stealing a Galactic Federation cruiser and uses its hyperdrive to flee to Earth, eventually crash landing on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. To recapture the escaped Experiment, the Galactic Federation offers Jumba his freedom if he successfully brings 626 back. He is partnered with Agent Pleakley, the Federation's self-proclaimed Earth expert, and together they travel to Hawaii to begin their mission. Meanwhile, young Lilo Pelokai struggles to fit in at her hula school and is frequently bullied by another girl named Myrtle. She lives with her older sister Nani, who has been trying to care for Lilo since the loss of their parents. Their social worker, Cobra Bubbles, visits the sisters and warns Nani that she must prove she can provide a stable home within a week or risk losing custody of Lilo. The pressure leaves both sisters emotionally exhausted, leading to frequent arguments despite their love for one another. Later that evening, after another disagreement, Lilo and Nani notice what appears to be a shooting star streaking across the sky. Believing it to be a real shooting star, Lilo makes a heartfelt wish. In reality, it is Experiment 626 crashing to Earth. After landing near a wedding reception, 626 is accidentally struck by a tourist trolley and is soon captured and taken to a local animal shelter. The following day, Lilo visits the shelter with her elderly neighbor Data. Realizing that Jumba and Pleakley are searching for him, Experiment 626 disguises himself as an ordinary dog to avoid capture. Touched by the unusual creature, Lilo adopts him and names him Stitch, much to Nani's concern. Although reluctant, Nani agrees to let Lilo keep Stitch, provided she takes responsibility for caring for him. Soon after, Stitch notices Myrtle bullying Lilo again. Wanting to defend his new friend, he trips Myrtle and steals her toy vehicle, leading the pair on a wild adventure that ends near a scenic cliff overlooking the ocean. While Lilo admires the beautiful view, Stitch realizes he is trapped on an island surrounded by water, something he instinctively fears because he cannot swim. Nani later takes Lilo and Stitch to the beachside gift shop where she works alongside her friend David Koina. During the visit, Lilo officially names her new pet Stitch after Nani jokes that he needs a seatbelt like a child. However, Stitch's chaotic behavior accidentally starts a fire, resulting in Nani losing her job. As Nani's situation becomes even more difficult, Cobra Bubbles continues monitoring the family's welfare. At the same time, Jumba and Pleakley arrive in Hawaii disguised as social workers, determined to find Stitch without revealing their true identities. Their pursuit sets the stage for an adventure filled with action, comedy, and heartfelt moments as Lilo, Stitch, and Nani fight to keep their family together. Cobra Bubbles tells Nani that she must find a new job immediately if she wants to keep custody of Lilo. Although Nani attends several job interviews, each opportunity falls apart because of the unexpected chaos caused by Lilo and Stitch. Eventually, Nani gets a job as a surfing instructor, but she is fired after her very first shift due to another mishap. Despite everything, she and Lilo still manage to enjoy a fun day surfing together. Meanwhile, Jumba and Pleakley continue their attempts to capture Stitch, but every plan ends in failure. During one of their pursuits, Stitch accidentally puts Lilo in danger, nearly causing her to drown. After Lilo is rescued and taken to the hospital, Cobra explains to Nani that the government can cover Lilo's medical expenses, arrange a relocation, and transfer her guardianship if necessary. Realizing she may have no other choice, Nani reluctantly accepts the situation, and the sisters spend one final evening together. Feeling guilty for everything that has happened, Stitch reflects on his actions and quietly returns to the animal shelter. At the same time, the Grand Councilwoman grows frustrated with Jumba's repeated failures to capture Stitch. Although she orders him to remain patient, Jumba ignores her instructions and decides to capture Stitch on his own without Pleakley's help. The next morning, Cobra and Nani discover that Lilo has slipped out of her bedroom. They immediately begin searching the island for her. Lilo eventually finds Stitch at the animal shelter, but Jumba arrives to recapture him. Together, Lilo and Stitch escape back to their house, where Stitch battles Jumba, causing massive damage to the home. Pleakley tries to stop the fight, while Lilo desperately attempts to protect Stitch. During the confrontation, Jumba cruelly claims that Stitch only used Lilo for his own protection, leaving Lilo heartbroken. He then opens a portal with his portal gun and takes Stitch aboard his spaceship. Before leaving, Stitch tells Lilo to run as the damaged roof begins collapsing around her. On board the ship, Jumba plans to erase Stitch's newly developed empathy and restore him to his original destructive nature. However, Lilo secretly sneaks onto the ship and rescues Stitch. Together, they eject Jumba from the spacecraft. The struggle damages the ship's controls, causing it to crash into the ocean. Lilo and Stitch become trapped underwater. Although Stitch survives, Lilo cannot swim back to the surface. Realizing this, Stitch selflessly lets her go so she can live. Nani, David, and Jumba rush to the scene to rescue them, but Lilo refuses to leave without Stitch. David carries Lilo safely back to shore while Nani dives back into the ocean to find Stitch. They eventually bring him to the beach, but he appears lifeless. Moments later, Pleakley and the others arrive, and David manages to revive Stitch by jump-starting his lungs. Soon afterward, the Grand Councilwoman arrives and arrests Jumba for disobeying her orders. Witnessing how much Stitch has changed, she has a change of heart and allows him to remain on Earth with his new family. Pleakley is also permitted to stay as the Galactic Federation's official observer. As everyone returns home, Cobra tells Nani that the day's events have not changed the custody decision. However, he suggests an alternative solution. Nani can temporarily transfer Lilo's guardianship to David, allowing Lilo to remain in her home while Nani leaves for college in California. At first, Nani is reluctant to accept the arrangement, but Lilo reassures her that everything will be okay. Encouraged by her sister's support, Nani signs the necessary paperwork. The sisters share a heartfelt, emotional hug before Nani departs for California to pursue her education. Back home, Lilo, Stitch, David, Pleakley, and their friends rebuild the house and continue living happily together as one loving family. In a mid-credits scene, Nani, now a marine biology student at the University of California, San Diego, uses Jumba's portal gun to visit Lilo and Stitch back home. Just as Cobra Bubbles approaches, the three quickly jump into bed, making it appear as though Lilo has been asleep the entire time. Believing everything is normal, Cobra leaves. Nani and Stitch then share a heartfelt goodnight before the credits roll. Cast: the film stars Sydney Elizabeth Agudong as Nani, Billy Magnussen, Kevin McDonald as the voice of the Grand Councilwoman, Chris Sanders reprising his role as the voice of Stitch, Courtney B. Vance as Cobra Bubbles, Zach Galifianakis as Dr. Jumba Jokiba, Diagari, David Hekili Kanui Bell as Mr. Kukoa, Amy Hill, Kaipo Dudoit, Maia Kealoha as Lilo, and Jason Scott Lee, along with Ryan Halprin and several other performers providing additional voices. Production development: a live-action adaptation of Lilo Stitch was first reported in October 2018, when Walt Disney Pictures announced that the project was in development. Dan Lin and Jonathan Irich were attached as producers through Rhinebeck, while Mike Van was hired to write the screenplay. On November 13, 2020, reports revealed that John M. Chu was in talks to direct the film, while Disney searched for a new writer to revise the script. However, in May 2021, Chu stepped away from the project to focus on his adaptation of The Great Chinese Art Heist. On July 14, 2022, Deadline reported that Dean Fleischer Camp had been hired to direct, with Chris Kikaniyokalani Bright brought in to rewrite the screenplay. On March 1, 2023, it was reported that the film's working title was Bad Dog. Around the same time, actor Kei Mikado, who had been cast as David Koina, was replaced by Kaipo Dudoit. It was later discovered that Mikado had previously used a racial slur in the title of a Spotify playlist. Filming principal photography was originally scheduled to begin on March 13, 2023, and conclude on June 16, 2023. However, production was delayed first to April and then postponed again after a fire. Filming eventually began in May 2023, with part of the Kalaniiniole Highway in Hawaii temporarily closed for production. Production was suspended on July 14, 2023, due to the SAG-AFTRA strike. Filming resumed in February 2024 and wrapped the following month. Release: Disney originally planned the film as a Disney Plus streaming release, as reported on February 4, 2020. However, by November 2022, reports from Variety and The Hollywood Reporter indicated that Disney had not yet decided whether the film would receive a theatrical or streaming release. Although a casting call later suggested the movie would debut on Disney Plus, the release strategy changed. During the D23 Expo in August 2024, Disney officially announced that Lilo Stitch would instead receive a theatrical release in summer 2025. 2 months later, the studio confirmed the official US release date as May 23, 2025. Differences from the 2002 film: the live-action remake introduces several new characters who were not featured in the 2002 animated film, including Tata and Mrs. Cocoa. These additions expand the story while giving the remake its own unique identity. Several details and character relationships were changed in the remake compared to the original film. Tata is introduced as David's grandmother and the neighbor of Lilo and Nani. In the original animated film, David's relatives never appear, and Lilo and Nani are not shown to have any neighbors. Cobra Bubbles takes on Lilo is noticeably taller than Stitch in the remake, while in the original animated film the two are nearly the same height. The costumes have also been updated. Throughout the remake, Lilo and Nani wear a variety of different outfits. Nani occasionally styles her hair in a bun, unlike the original where she almost always wears it down with her signature red outfit and white flower. Lilo frequently wears blue overalls, and her pajamas are changed to a white shirt with black shorts instead of the blue-green nightgown from the animated version. Stitch's spacesuit has also been redesigned. In the original film, it lacked the triangular holster and experiment number displayed on the chest. In the remake, his experiment number is clearly printed on the left side of the suit. The suit is destroyed shortly after Stitch crashes on Earth, whereas in the original it remained intact until it was later run over. Another notable change occurs when Stitch is struck by a vehicle. In the original film, he is hit by a convoy of plantation trucks, destroying his suit. In the remake, he is instead struck by a tour bus. The explanation for Stitch's weakness to water is also slightly different. In the original, the Grand Councilwoman explains that Stitch cannot survive in water because his high molecular density causes him to sink. In the remake, she clarifies that water increases his effective density, making him too heavy to stay afloat, meaning he would simply drown. Cobra Bubbles has a slimmer appearance in the remake compared to his large, muscular build in the original animated film. In the original story, he is already assigned to investigate Stitch while Jumba and Pleakley are separately sent by the Grand Councilwoman to capture him. In the remake, Cobra works alongside another agent rather than operating alone. His appearance has also changed. The remake gives him a mustache and removes the sunglasses that were a signature part of his original design. In the live-action version, Cobra is portrayed primarily as a social worker with a background as a CIA agent, whereas in the animated film he is an active CIA agent working undercover as a social worker. Interestingly, early concept art for the original film envisioned Cobra as much smaller and thinner before his iconic muscular appearance was finalized. In the animated film, Cobra Bubbles and the Grand Councilwoman already know each other. In the remake, they meet for the first time, and Cobra agrees to keep Lilo's knowledge of extraterrestrial life a secret. The remake also includes a new bonding scene in which Lilo and Stitch sneak into a hotel's swimming pool, something that never happens in the original movie. Coincidentally, a similar scenario appears in a later episode of the animated television series, although in that version Nani and David accompany them, and it is David's idea to sneak into the pool. During the surfing scenes, Lilo and Nani wear wetsuits instead of swimsuits. Stitch also wears inflatable armbands while learning to surf in the remake, another detail absent from the original film. Finally, during the surfing sequence, Jumba and Pleakley attempt to capture Stitch using a jet ski, adding a new action element that was not present in the animated version. Compared to the original animated film, several scenes and character details were changed in the live-action remake of Lilo Stitch. Instead of swimming through large ocean waves as in the original movie, Lilo is sent to the hospital after the incident, which never happens in the animated version. Jumba and Pleakley also disguise themselves differently. Rather than simply dressing as humans, they use Federation-certified cloning devices that allow them to temporarily assume the appearance of any life form whose DNA they have collected through physical contact. The transformation accurately replicates their size, clothing, and physical features. If the disguise is disrupted or they are injured, they briefly revert to their original alien forms before the disguise is restored. The remake also introduces a portal gun, which was absent from the original film. Jumba's plasma blaster has been redesigned as well. Instead of the red-orange weapon seen in the animated movie, the new version is white. Its plasma shots pass through objects and leave scorch marks, whereas the original weapon fired extremely hot green plasma balls that completely disintegrated their targets. Pleakley no longer disguises himself as a woman, although early concept art shows that this idea was considered. Instead, he first appears dressed as a coach before adopting his human disguise. Jumba and Pleakley also travel around Hawaii using a golf cart, another addition unique to the remake. The running gag involving the ice cream man has also changed. Rather than being a sunburned tourist whose chocolate chip ice cream repeatedly falls, he is portrayed as a local Hawaiian whose rainbow shave ice is constantly knocked over. Ironically, the original ice cream man was later revealed to enjoy shave ice in the Lilo Stitch, the series episode Slushy. The animal shelter sequence contains several notable differences. In the remake, Lilo visits the shelter with Tata and adopts Stitch without Nani's permission. In the original film, Lilo and Nani visit the shelter together to adopt a dog. This time, it is Tata who encourages Lilo to adopt Stitch, whereas that role belonged to Nani in the animated movie. Lilo and Stitch's first meeting is also different. In the remake, Lilo screams as Stitch suddenly bounces toward her before they hug. In the original, they simply bump into each other before embracing. The pet cages are noticeably smaller, and Lilo interacts directly with Stitch's cage after the commotion, unlike in the original film, where she simply walks past it. Stitch's behavior at the shelter has also been altered. In the animated movie, he reveals his extra arms, antennae, and back spines before meeting Lilo. In the remake, only his antennae appear. When a shelter worker attempts to restrain him, Stitch places a leash on the worker instead. Unlike the original, where Nani is present and no leash is involved, this confrontation takes place entirely inside the shelter. Another dialogue change occurs when Lilo asks Stitch to say aloha. In the remake, David remarks that dogs cannot talk, while shelter workers struggle to control Stitch. In the original film, it is a shelter employee who says dogs cannot talk after Lilo asks Stitch to say hi. Throughout the remake, Stitch behaves much more like a real dog. He frequently runs around the house on all fours and even scoots across the floor on his back, actions that were not featured in the animated version. The timeline surrounding Lilo and Nani's parents has also been adjusted. In the original film, they had died only recently in a car accident during a storm. In the remake, they passed away several years before the events of the story. Several members of the Galactic Alliance have updated designs and different voices. Nani also drives an older 1980s pickup truck instead of the blue 1960s Volkswagen Beetle featured in the original movie. The restaurant sequence has changed as well. It now takes place during the daytime instead of at night. David is not burned by the fire performance because he is busy entertaining guests when he notices Lilo and Stitch. The original scene of them already sitting at the table while Nani is working has been removed. Another new moment shows Nani tying Stitch to a tree with a leash, although he quickly frees himself. This scene never appears in the original film. Likewise, Stitch and Lilo playing with water sprinklers is a completely new addition. There is also a different joke involving Stitch's eating habits. Instead of biting into a cake, spitting it out, and giving it back to Lilo after upsetting her, Stitch eats one of Lilo's crayons without spitting it back out. Lilo's classmates have also been updated, and Nani is no longer just working to support her sister. In the remake, she is also attending college while searching for a better job. During this period, Lilo does not teach Stitch about Elvis Presley as she does in the original film. The Galactic Alliance's weapons have been redesigned, with some now capable of rolling across the floor while automatically firing at targets, a feature that did not exist in the original movie. Another new scene shows Stitch causing an unusually chaotic airplane landing, something that never occurs in the animated film. The famous record player scene has also been modified. Lilo now uses Stitch as a makeshift record player in the dining room rather than in Nani's bedroom. She also opens and closes Stitch's mouth differently. In the original film, Nani watches as Lilo places the record into Stitch's mouth. In the remake, Nani is too busy studying to notice. The music played during this sequence has changed as well. In the original movie, Stitch plays the chorus of Suspicious Minds. In the remake, he instead plays the first verse and chorus of You're the Devil in Disguise. The filmmakers later confirmed that Suspicious Minds was used only when Stitch's mouth was closed, while You're the Devil in Disguise appeared in the theatrical trailer and the version where his mouth was open. David's fire knife performance is also different. In the remake, he performs alone instead of alongside other male performers. Stitch even attempts to perform a fire knife dance himself. In the original film, Stitch joins David's performance only during the ending montage. Finally, the remake includes a reference to the 1958 science fiction's classic Earth vs. the Spider, adding another subtle nod to classic monster movies. Several scenes in the live-action remake differ noticeably from the original Lilo Stitch. Instead of watching television in an electronics store, the characters watch it in an ice cream parlor. Stitch is also seen eating a regular ice cream cone rather than the shaved ice street featured in the original film. Jumba and Pleakley hide their spaceship at the bottom of a lake instead of in the jungle. Jumba's appearance is more detailed, making him look much more intimidating. His personality is also far more antagonistic, and he expresses a stronger hatred toward humans than he did in the original film and the TV series. The remake also changes Lilo's interaction with the birds. In the original film, she feeds them peanut butter sandwiches because she believes a fish cannot eat tuna. This explains why she is late for school and why Nani later says she cannot afford to keep buying peanut butter. In the remake, however, Lilo simply gives the fish a tuna sandwich, removing the humorous explanation from the original. Lilo's confrontation with Myrtle is also handled differently. In the animated film, Lilo grabs Myrtle by the collar, punches her in the face, and even bites her after explaining why she feeds the fish sandwiches. The hula instructor scolds only Lilo for her behavior, and the class is told they will try again on Sunday. In the remake, Myrtle is merely pushed off the stage instead of being splashed with water after Lilo arrives soaking wet. The more violent actions from the original were likely removed because of modern standards regarding violence in schools. Another change involves Lilo's hula classes. In the remake, Nani says that Lilo was kicked out of hula class, something that never happened in the original movie. In the animated version, Lilo simply leaves school early after fighting with Myrtle and remains a member of the hula class throughout the story. Myrtle's appearance has also changed. In the original film and the TV series, she wears glasses, but she does not wear them in the remake. She has a smaller role overall, although she appears in a few additional scenes. Unlike the original movie, the remake introduces Myrtle's parents, while the animated film never showed them. However, Myrtle's father was mentioned in the TV series. The hula performance is handled differently as well. In the original film, the other girls wait calmly for their turn to perform and do not seem concerned about Lilo's absence. In the remake, they expect Lilo to arrive and openly wonder where she is. Their instructor refuses to begin the performance until Lilo finally shows up. Lilo's arrival at school is also different. In the original movie, she runs straight from swimming at the beach to school while still wearing her swimsuit beneath her clothes, leaving water dripping across the floor during the performance. In the remake, she arrives dry instead. The original film also includes a scene where the hula instructor tells Lilo to wait for Nani before leaving school, but Lilo ignores the instruction after showing Myrtle and the other girls her doll, Scrump. Feeling rejected, she leaves on her own before Nani arrives. The remake changes Nani's role during the performance as well. She is supposed to come to the school to watch Lilo dance but never makes it, which is why Lilo walks home alone. In the original film, Nani was never expected to attend the performance. Another memorable scene involving Cobra Bubbles is also altered. In the original movie, Nani runs outside in a panic and is nearly hit by Cobra Bubbles' car. She kicks his vehicle, calls him a stupid head, and then chases after him. None of this happens in the remake, where Nani arrives home without causing any trouble. The argument between Lilo and Nani also plays out differently. In the original film, Lilo locks Nani out of the house while listening to Elvis Presley records after feeling hurt because Myrtle and the other girls walked away while she was talking about Scrump. In the remake, she locks Nani out only because Nani missed her hula performance. There are even small changes to the Pelikai house itself. The front door is different from the one seen in the animated film. Finally, the sisters' chase scene has been significantly simplified. In the original movie, Nani chases Lilo around the house while Lilo licks Nani's arm to escape, hides inside the laundry area, and later sneaks out after hearing the front door slam. Nani eventually catches up with her, grabs her arm, scolds her, and Lilo storms off to her room. In the remake, the chase takes place mostly outside the house, and Lilo no longer hides in the dryer or laundry room. Nani grabs her in the arm while scolding her and the hard she does not begin crying either. Nani just holds her loads on the couch and she breaks while storming upstairs to her room. In the original film, Lilo stays in the room at the night sadly after the big fight and Nani was in the bringing her pizza and cake here if it was hungry. He remarked Nani instead of bigger as a sandwich instead of pizza. In the original film, Lilo and Nani have our conversation at night where Lilo begins crying when asking Nani if she likes to better as a sister than our rabbit. In the remark, Lilo almost creases her and they both have a nice conversation while trying to get along. In the original film, Lilo tells Nani to get her out of her room so that she can make our wish after seeing in the falling star and tries pushing her out causing Nani to fall to Lilo while crushing her and then Lilo slams through the door while hitting Nani's head. In the remark Lilo does not slam through the door while hitting Nani's head. She just pushes her out and walks over the windows as if she makes a wish and then Nani as quietly opens through the door while listening and her without Lilo noticing. In the remark Lilo tries to fit in the modeler and her friends by showing them that she always has a friendship bracelet and then she made just like them while in the original film. Lilo tries to fit in something and the model her friend that she has a doll just like them. She had made the name Scramp much to the girl horror. In the original film Lilo orders cake for the desert in the Loloa and the aunties did eat both cake slices and the before bars them out giving them to the Loloa with the backflash and the making her change her mind about in the make and she does not order any cake of the desert not does she eat of it all. In the original film Lilo does not complain about the being at Nani's lot and however in the remark she does not complain why she was forced to go to work with Nani due to the budget constraint and the caption Gantu does not appear in the remark at all. Instead Jumbo assumes Gantu and role as the main anti-ghoster and does not become part of the Liloa family at the end unlike the original film. If Gantu had been included Jumbo and could have potentially joined to own a film on side Blackie. However, that the good change in the upcoming sequel if Gantu appears. Lilo and Stitch try to tar in the miniature by toy by the instead of the tricycle and the Stitch sale from the model after Martin instead him for his ugliness. The total that Nani and David work at the call Jumba and lawyer and it part of the reports in the original film. The lawyer name is unknown and the same to be an owner business. Nani get fun from her job at the Stitches a table on the fire instead of attacking disguised Blackja who along with the Jumba uses chicken a disc rented the white cap. Also Anania blames and Lilo Stitches the reason for the losing her job in the remark what does not connect in the original go Stitch wrong. The softness and the blow to climbing. She hated the working there and the manager was our vampire and Stitch decided to return to animal shelter after the taking and she is causing too much trouble of Lilo and Anania's remark in the original. He wandered to jungle but not far from the home. Instead of the mother duck and her duckling before she leaves in the original film Stitch renounced it and the frog Anzu encountered with the film arrived to Earth after crashing the wedding on the way back to the animal shelter, where it are acquired and the frog has a pair of children in the incarnation instead of father firing Jumba and Pleakley of the error mistake. The Grand Councilwoman decided to go back on her deal. She ordered Pleakley to bring Jumba back into the Costratia, and however Jumba breaks away from Thea Pleakley and decided to go after Thea Stitch on his own. Lilo runs off and found the Stitch before Cobra and Cobra A arrived rather than the point that they arrived. The confirmation with the Jumba and not happened to the Pleakley resident but also the briefly at Thea animal shelter. This also happens after a Cobra and the Cobra arrived rather than before Stitch surrendered to Jumbo after it leave that was using Lilo protection in the remark where this original filmer did leave and himself to Lilo just before the being captured by Cobra. In the original film the Pleakley house blown up at the end of Stitch and Thea Jumbo fight. In the remark the house is doctored and extensive damage as a patua. Part collapsed but it is not completely destroyed. Jumba plans to upgrade Stitch in the experiment 627 to remove the empathy and the original here never instead on dude instead Ofar suggests to upgrade Stitch to a trailer and not so fluffy to which by the Stitcher returns in the film of responding like fluffy. He does create 627 in the TV series but as our separate character. Lilo does not get captured by Jumba. She instead sneaks aboard his ship help raise Stitch and the ejection and the Jumba was a mistake here the ship caught in the ocean. Nani David Toto Cobra and Pleakley help to save Lilo and Stitch from the drowning and the falling the crash landing. Music at the end of the original film both of Pleakley and Jumba become part of Thea Lilo's family after being sentenced to exile with the Stitch on Earth but in the remark only Pleakley gets hero treatment while Jumba is arrested and they taken back into outside by Thea Galactic Federation. As Nani agrees to grant Lilo a grant to David and the Toto by Cobra as a suggestion. This does not happen in Thea original film. Additional Nani gets into the university and they visit Lilo and Stitch for night using Jumba teleportation and the gun Lilo gets a David that she reads Nani's text message here talking about the David in the original film, and Lilo tells David that she is Nani's Adrati and that she saw what she wrote about the David. In Thea remarks Stitch tries to drink a lava lamp while in the original film Stitch drink coffee out of a baby bottle. Nani gets a job of being a surfing instructor at the beach but in the original film she tries to butt face to get a job by the lifeguard at the beach thanks to Thea. Music. Destruction that Stitch caused when the beach girls and the surrounded to take the photos him when she was dressed up and the evil so embarrassingly. In the TV series it are believed that Nani did not used to have an abundance of long hair. Stitch Traveler shows Lilo as extra appendage in the remark in the original film that a Pleakley house was rebuilt and by Lilo Nani Jumba Stitcher and David Cobra and the Pleakley in the remark and some construction worker do this instead. This made created senior shows the picture of Nani and David kissing her which never happens in the original film. In the end the creator original film here is a photo in the bedroom while dispatching a Nani David at the beach at night subtle subtitly impressing Nani and David romantic relationship at the ending. This was and previously first head woman in the first film when the devil suggests that Nani did and the leader way of thanking the former of getting her a new Ifra and the old man Coco Alani story. Nania and the Lilo's family name likely and more excitedly shown a few time in the viewers in the film viewers in the original film Lilo's full name is Shona and was a stage adaptation from Lilo's full name is also previously mentioned either at the beginning of The Lawyer and Stitch, like his first name was relieved in the original film but it is relieved in Lilo and Stitch the series to be one day and we are the briefly so full name to Cobra and Bubbles revealing that the first name in the direct to Wanda. The original film took a place somewhere between the 2001 and the 2002 and the remark take place in the June 2024. This time period is confirmed by the following evidence. The polygrapher shows reviews at the time it take place here on the Tuesday Stitches. Music. A hyperjump is kept shortly after happens while it's daytime and Holly and his girlfriend and the guest knocked out later and that night leading to him being taken animal shelter the next morning. Lilo is rotated to shelter to same name and the deputy Stitch a brief shoot of a smartphone showing a promotional email sent by the Animala shelter shortly after the deposition revealed that Lilo adopted Stitch at on June 26th and not on or to 626 days a Stitch's day in the reference to the Stitch experiment number since June 26th. 2004 was a Wednesday that did after Thea Tuesday, and it also coincidentally 22 years after the year of the event. French and the Flemish new viewers on the 2002 and film were released in Belgium and the France respectively. This confirms that the event of the film expected to epilogue and the take place of June 25 to June 28, 2024. Due to the change in the period smartphone as a commonly seen in the film, viewers the only cell phone in the animated film in the Cobra's film phone, and would not even the Cobra and the film phone at the time. Nani struck as a CD player and the features of Bluetooth USB connectivity, and the Stitch Axe messed up the radio where the CDs were more common in the early 2000s. Bluetooth and USB technology were in the early years at the time of the original film release and would not have been found on the car CD player then. Westerace satellite radio and the XMA satellite radio were separate components, and that just recently, within a year of the animated film release, launched at that time, the two satellite radio components would not merge until 2008. Lilo Stitch becomes the first $1 billion MPA film of 2025 at the global box office. Everyone favorite Ryback little blue alien has across an important milestone. The Walt Disney Studio live-action remaining for Lilo Stitch has officially crossed the $1 mark at the global box office, making it the first Motion Picture Association pay title of 2025 to reach the milestone. The film now stands at the 1 MPA release on the year both globally and internationally. The achievement marks a significant moment for the Disney, which has now delivered $4 billion film in the past 13 months. And alongside Lilo Stitch, the studio recent $1 billion hits include Moana 2. Studio's recent $1 billion hits include Moana 2 from the Walt Disney Animation Studio, Marvelous Studio, Deadpool and the World Run under Disney, and the Pixar Inside Out 2. We knew that there was a lot of love for Lilo Stitch with the audience around the world, yet we never take for the granted, and we are proud how the new film has a coincident with the people. Alan Bergman and the co-chairman of the Disney Entertainment has said, "I am thankful to our filmmaker and outcast all over the studio and Gima out have made this film such a success, and we look forward to more adventure with these characters ahead." Domestically, Lilo Stitch spawned with the status $183 million the 4 days, setting a new record for the biggest Memorial Day weekend debut in our history. One of the only two films of this year that surpassed and surpassed $400 million at the North American box office. The film's success has rejuvenated global interest in the Lilo Stitch franchise, worship of the original 2002 and animated film, and related content on Disney has the surge with the more than 640 million hours streamed globally. A sequel to the live-action film in the order already development. Stitch is an example of what Disney actually does best, and what Greenbaum and the president of Disney Live-Action and 20th Century Studios said in my and extraordinary animated film from 2002 that becomes the series that and over time create a Lilo franchise, and the way she leads through it to get the idea of creating the wonderful film that we know, bringing out to all the world. Lilo Stitch performance here underscores of the studio's continued box office demand is, as well as the ability to relate this and the beloved classics road stories for newer generation. The film's success to reinforce the global reach of the Disney brand, showcasing the company's ability to craft stories at the touch multiply of part of Disney business, from the theatrical streaming experience to consumer product. Recommended article: The Devil Wears Prada to deliver on the 2026 and biggest global opening. Lilo Stitch becomes Hollywood's first movie hit $1 billion in 2025. All hail Stitch. Disney Live Action and Lilo Stitch remark in the year's first Hollywood release on $1 billion at the worldwide box office. After having weekend in the theaters, and the film comedy was grossed $416.1 million in North America and $584.8 million internationally for our global total of $1.001 billion. Chinese blockbuster and as a 2 however remains by far the biggest film of 2025 with $1.899 billion in the bank. Originally planned as a straight-to-theater streaming release, Lilo Stitch in the latest example of the outside return, so that Disney combined from the theatrical with the right property and the right name. Moana 2 was also developed by Disney Plus as a television show, and it became a $1 billion box office smash last Thanksgiving, and the studio first rotated the animated sequel to the bigger screen with the achievement Walt Disney Studio had released $4 billion film in the past 13 months alone, including Marvel's and Deadpool and Thea World Brian and the Big Hero. Music. We knew that there was a lot of love via Lilo Stitch with the audiences and around the world, yet we never take that to the granted, and we were proud of how their new film has connected with the people. Disney Entertainment co-chairman Alana Bergman and the said and equal to Thea, our filmmaker, our cast and all Thea studio team who have made this film such a success, and we look forward to more adventure with these characters ahead. Lilo Stitch opened in late May to $183 billion domestically and $341 billion globally in the 4 days, setting the biggest Memorial Day weekend debut in the history. It remains a #1 for the 3 consecutive year weekend and become of only the 2 films in the years the Warner Brothers video game in adaptation of Minecraft and the movie in the other surpass $400 million at the domestic box office at the point. Minecraft was poised to the year first $1 billion blockbuster, but Thea Deadpool ended by the following just short of that milestone with $955 million worldwide. In the case of Lilo Stitch, top international territories and to include Mexico $67 million and Thea United Kingdom $49 million and a franchise $42.5 million. Music. So 23 years have passed since the 2002 animated Lilo Stitch arrived in theaters. The character has never won in the popularity on the shelves and toy stores. In 2024, Disney sold $2.6 billion in the consumer product appealing and the Lilo Stitch 2. Now that our whole new generation has been introduced to the mischievous and the agent, so far jobs and merchandise and the sales are likely to keep the soaring through the holiday season. And then there's Disney Plus viewing share, which has grown significantly over the year in the streaming service. According to the Studio Insider, the franchise, which also includes several direct-to-video movie and television show, has the driving more than $680 billion hours of stream with original film according to the movie, and then 280 hours. Directed by Dean Fleischer Camp and the producers by Red Brick, Lilo Stitch follows an ardor with the blue extra sleeves and the created by Chris Sanders and the Hawaiian and the guest adapted by the young girl and her older sister. Disney Alreja announced a live-action sequel in the works, so get ready for more Stitcher. Music. By then, Lilo Stitch crosses $1 billion global box office and the first Hollywood title of 2025 to milestones. Disney Lilo Stitch has crossed the $1 billion market at the worldwide box office now with $1.001 billion throughout Wednesday. The sweet little girl and her mischievous blue alien finally give her Hollywood its first $1 billion movie of 2025, with Lilo Stitch the only studio film to reach the milestone this year. The split of $416.2 million domestic and the $584.8 million for the international box office, while playing continues LS in the #1 MPA movie of 2025 both internationally and globally. The Disney Red Brick production, directed by Dean Fleischer, and come past $1 million with the Wednesday grosses, including this after the 8 weekend that saw increases and strong holidays in the handful of the overseas markets. Music. Disney Entertainment co-chairman Alana Bergman and said, "We knew that we was our lot of love of Lilo Stitch with the audience around the world, yet never take that for granted, and we are part of this new film and connected with the people, and thankful to our filmmaker and our cast and all over the studio team who have made this film such a success, and we look forward to the adventure with these characters ahead." Domestically, Lilo Stitch opened with $23 at a record-breaking $183 million in our 4 days, setting the biggest memorable day weekend debut in the history. It's become one of the only film this year to surpass $400 million at the domestic box office. Internationally, LS is the highest-grossing Disney live-action film of all time in Mexico, and they are already the highest-grossing film of 2025 across a range of the key international markets in Europe, France, Italy, Spain and the Latin American Brazil, Mexico in the addition in several smaller remarks. Notably, Latin American has a region just under the $200 million, landing greater in the overall, and the top 10 overseas markets through the Wednesday are Mexico $67 million, UK $48.9 million, France $42.4 million, Brazil $37.1 million, Germany $32.4 million, Spain $27.4 million, China $25.2 million, Italy and $25.1 million, Australia $21.10 million, Argentina and $20.1 million. Lilo and Stitch is currently playing in theaters worldwide, and a sequel in now a development. That new action film box office success had related global interest in the franchise, driving theater board over shape of original animated classic and related content of Disney Plus, which have been viewed more than 640 million hours on the platform globally. With this new achievement, the Walt Disney Studio has released $4 billion for film in the past 13 months alone. Lilo and Stitch 1 to 2. You are Deadpool and the World Prime and Insidia 2. Lilo and Stitch weighed Tom Cruise in the box office bonanza. Music. Hey Disney live action Lilo and Stitch are remarked, and Tom Cruise supposedly find the Mission Impossible outstanding, having opened out to the biggest film at the year in record-breaking weekend at the box office. Lilo and Stitch, which are released in the 2022 animated film, a favorite, exceeded expectations, with the talking of $341 million and $252 million around the world. That made it the second highest opening for the 2025 so far, after then Minecraft and a movie, Variety reported, and the broke the record the Memorial Day weekend in the US. Mission Impossible, the final and the 8th film in the franchise, also provide a hit with $190 million in the ticket sales. Cruise has been playing Agent Ethan Hunter since 1996, and the seemingly confirmed the final docking would be the last two installment, by telling The Hollywood Reporter, in the final, it is not called the final of or nothing, but some harder dropped about the whether it will really turn out to be the end. The blockbuster had been some revenue loser, with The Guardian calling it a wild entertainment adventure in a 5-star review, and the Annie 180 AR Fear describing it as a worthy send-off. However, not everyone was blown away, in The Hollywood Reporter saying it's the disappointing farewell, and the Mashable saying the series risk going in the fizzless, and the reverberance of the message itself a destruction in the tap time. Meanwhile, a Lilo and Stitch in the latest in the long line of the live-action box of the beloved Disney animation, and achieved the third best box office opening behind the 2019 The Lion King and the 2017 Beauty and the Beast. Variety set. The new R version starts contrasts the Beerwood Burns seasons and the strange difference in the immunity of the young cast in each season. The original Lilo and Stitch was the animation released in 2002 and is true a Disney classic for fans worldwide. It has 86% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, while the remake has a respectable 72%. No to everyone warmed to the remake or the story was rated for the adaptation. The 2002 movie features Alain Gondra and was the film's primary villain, which was removed in the remake. Gondra was originally hoping to capture Stitch, return him to prison instead of the made lovable Jumbo for a villain, and replace the missing character, and helped push the plot forward. There are no key details yet regarding plot or our release date, but Disney's original Lilo and Stitch is a character by the view of the live-action adaptation in adding the next sequel, and did know to receive great feedback and only had a 42% rating on Tomatoes. And however, the premise and the strong and good potentially outforms as a live-action remark. 2025 Lilo and Stitch is one of the highest grossing movie of this year and grossed over $1 million at the box office, followed closely behind by a Minecraft movie. That film broke record and it become a biggest Memorial Day recorder opening in history, grossing $183.1 million recording that period. Lilo and Stitch is a growing fast major Hollywood role, but she has the smaller role in the TV shows such as Ellen Sice and On My Block. She has the upcoming project title after which currently does not have a release date. Lilo and Stitch live-action character design ranked. Beside a few disability change, the live-action Lilo and Stitch film has mostly been praised for the adaptation of the animated 2002 movie ever since it released on May 23, 2025. Reviews for the Lilo and Stitch have been quite good. This positive review along with the popularity of the character led to the Lilo Stitch being to the most popular movie of the summer. Throughout its theatrical run, the live-action remake managed to make $1.03 billion at the worldwide box office via Box Office Mojo, becoming the second highest grossing movie of the year so far. Now Lilo and Stitch is a streaming hit on the Disney. Since the film is the finally own streaming, it is the perfect time or visit one most of the successful live-action Disney remakes and ever. Obviously everything about the Lilo and Stitch remake is not perfect. For example, Jumba's character talks in changed dramatically, and the Captain again too is not even included in the movie. Additionally, When it comes to character design, not everything is exact, therefore here are new Lilo and Stitch characters ranked by how they look in other live action compared to the Demander and Counter. Music. Fashion. Ice Cream Guy. Even though the Ice Cream Guy is not a prominent character or at all, is a still memorable part of the original animated movie. Therefore fans were delighted to learn that it would be included in the live-action film as well. However, in the unfortunately it seems like the live-action version did not happen to the replicate in the look from the animated movie. In the 2002 movie, Ice Cream Guy has a massive snare and burn in the incredible distinctive ear tank to the line. This would have been a highly sun and to see the live action, but instead we go to the upfront and a man who gave his tank to the Tapu additional instead of eating ice cream. He said the Horizon and the shave ice cream and the ice action and Lilo Stitch, and which seems like such an unnecessary change. Cobra Bubbles. In the animated film, Cobra Bubbles is an animating formature agent who is determined to find Thea Stitch. In the live-action version of Father Story, Cobra Bubbles is played by the Courtney B. Vance, and the nothing against Vance's acting, but it's just a not physically entertaining immediately and enough to apply convincing version of the Cobra Bubbles, which is why he is near the bottom of this list. Vance's version of the Cobra Bubbles wears the character signification gold earning and new often she is the suit wearer. Both positive for Lilo and Stitch should have younger and more muscular actor father better mimic and the animated version of the Cobra Bubbles. Overall, Vance's version of the character is not nearly by effective as his animated counterpart. Music. David. Other than the Cobra Bubbles, most of the human character are well cast in the live-action Lilo and Stitch. Koi Pond did it great. The David in the live-action version of the film. The character convincingly plays a husband and a well performance and the lifeguard, but it does not seem like that even to style hair and similar style as the animated version of the character. In the animated movie, David has our slightly long hair in the middle part with just that happened to the popular hairstyle nowadays. Therefore it would have been nice to see the creative team behind the live-action film try to give the David and this hairstyle, because this is not the case and David must have the place near the bottom of this list. Nani. Music. Actress Sydney and Elizabeth Agudong plays Nani in the live-action Lilo Stitch. Remark. In the movie, Nani struggled to watch over both Lilo and her wild new pet and awkward perfect the portraits in stash to the character face throughout the film's story. However, it must be mentioned by the Lilo and Stitch to some controversy, and the Nani actor was initially announced. Even though she has born and raised in the Hawaii acting is the questions and the Filipino and the Polynesian and this and we she has cast a Nani. Many fans pointed out at that a later skin tone that the animated version of the character. Additional Nani can often see with her hair and bean and wearing large gold hoop appearing in the 2025 movie, which is never she got in the animated film. Grand Counseling a Woman. Music. Even though she does not have a major role in either the animated of the live-action Lilo Stitch movie, the Grand Counseling Woman thankfully commented and commands the screen during the scene in the both project. Overall, the design of the Grand Counseling Woman for the live-action film is great. To those who want to nitpick that definitely find the same slight differences. Firstly, the auntie and a nasty the reset of the Grand Counseling a Woman should just the smaller and a different shape than it in the animated movie. Additional she live action and the does not perfect showcase the darkness in the Grand Counseling who is however worth noticing that area just many criticism that movie was not a problem with Lilo. While there was our contrast and about Nani's casting in the live action and Lilo movie, most of the fans agrees the Hawaiian actor Maia Kealoha is a perfect Lilo. Kealoha was out every year by the she was filming the movie view as the briefly older than the 6-year-old Lilo. Therefore, he was so easily able to play a child who is full of energy and can be quite rebellious at a time. Beyond Kealoha an excellent portrayal and of the character and here a clean comedic ability Lilo outfit in the movie on the animated film, especially Lilo wears a red t-shirt with a white flower to pay the homage to character red and white dress from the animated movie. Overall, and there was always bound to some the difference between live action and animation, Lilo looks great in the remark. Pleakley. Another major change from the animated movie is the depiction and Pleakley jump who has lined to earth to capture Stitch to save the money to live action Lilo and Stitch over allows to the lines to discuss some subhuman during several key scene. However, When they are aligned from it can be aligned and their character design neither great. Thinking first on Thea Pleakley that live the action version of the character has a slim and figured 3 fingers and each hand of eye under the single antenna of the head. She just like a 20222002 film. Additionally, she wears similar uniform as in Just 2 animated movie. Therefore, when she actually in the true line from the would be hard to complain about Pleakley design in the live action Lilo and Stitch remark. Music Jumba. And just like Pleakley she may not disguise as a human in the live action Lilo and Stitch movie. He's a character design in the amazing Jumba portrayed and a plump aligned with the 4 eyes and the circular nose just like as in the animated movie. The remark and even the Jumbatini ears and witches sit quite low, closer to the chin rather than at the side of his head. This live version of the Jumbo has more hair rather than the just singly strand but she makes sense to cover up the dark purple portion of his head from the animated movie. Therefore, while some disagree with the Jumbo as a character arc in the live-action Lilo and Stitch and it can be designed that the line's character designed faithfully adapts the original Stitch. If the design of Stitch did not look right in the Lilo and Stitch remark, it particularly guaranteed the movie would not have been a major success. Stitch design was by far the most important aspect of the remark and the creative to thankful did by a fantastic job. Stitch perfectly and the looks identical to the animated counterpart which is a huge relief in the live action film. Stitch blue fur and 2 large floppy ears, big black ears and is overall just as cute as it in the animated movie. The live-action film even include the flow standard by Thea stacking up at the top of the Stitch head is the great attention of detail. Stitch fur on the stomach and the around his eyes so arguably more wide than it is the animated movie but does not negatively impact the character design at all. Therefore, the character design of the Stitch is fantastic in the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake and perfectly honored the original animated film. Global box office champ shockingly dethroned at home by unlike rival Disney recent Lilo and Stitch remake in the huge at all the studio beauty. It is now clear that the film failed to set and surprisingly 2025 box office record by the end of its run earning a more than $1 billion and solidifying the Disney remake feature. The movie has already become the biggest Hollywood hit of 2025 globally. 2025 has so been interesting year at the box office while paving like F1 the movie have found surprisingly success. Some of what seemed to grant it hits the like Marvel project the Fantastic Four first Theo Steps and Thunderbolts have underperformed. Snow White was the disaster for the Disney yet Lilo and Stitch was able to break through a temporary. Music. The state of the box office the change and nothing attached to the further than the highest grossing movie 2025 the Chinese market and Naisa at second considered this however Watu as the most surprising in the performance of Lilo Stitch domestically in climate dating in the surprisingly strategic. Music. Lilo and Stitch would not be in the Minecraft 2B 2025 highest to gross domestically so far. Lilo and Stitch might be the biggest Hollywood hit global but it will not be able to overtake the biggest domestic hit our Minecraft movie by the end of its run. Minecraft is one of the Warner Brothers and the biggest movies of all time, earning a $423 million domestically with our worldwide total of more than $953 billion. Then, this has a huge year of the Warner Brothers who currently have these of the 5 highest domestic gross of 2025 area Minecraft movie and Rondas and success by a shocking, but the incredible performance here of the sense that original film by Ryan Coogler is equally surprisingly dotted by the Superman domestic run. This being a year for the studio at home. Lilo and Stitch is just about to move the streaming on Disney. Lilo and Stitch is just about to move the streaming on Disney Plus on September 3rd and ISO already available for the purchase digitally while the streams have been excellent and are currently making a less than $250,000 a week and they are dropping quickly. This movie ISO currently is only 65 theaters and its sales is the $421,743,355 domestically per Box Office Mojo. And while the film is just over $2 billion away from the overtaking Minecraft and domestically it does not to appear this happened during this initial release still the box office for Lilo and Stitch is a truly impressive feat for the demented studio and especially in the wake of several of their film underperforming this year. Disney could still take over the top domestically spot later this year. They have to Zootopia 2A and Tron Arise and more including a subsidiary 20th Century Studio Avatar of Fire and the Ashes still come. As it stand however, Lilo and Stitch will have to settle for the biggest Hollywood hit of 2025 overall. Just no two at home. 1 billion later, Lilo and Stitch has turned around Disney remark flop era. Disney had a rough start to the year, but the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake has thankfully Stitch has a success. Ever since its release on Maia 23, 2025, the highly anticipated film about the lovable and aligned creature has been one of the biggest movie of the summer. In the total, Lilo Stitch has managed to gross just over $1 billion at the box office. This impressive box office haul makes it one of the most successful Disney live-action remakes so far the all-time. The only Disney remakes that have grossed more than it are Alice in Wonderland and the Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and the Lilo Stitch over the years. Disney has clearly had a lot of success with its live-action remakes, but some of the studio's projects have struggled. Review for Lilo Stitch were great, which played and helped its box office performance. Beauty the same cannot be that said for Snow White that released in the March of this year. Along with Snow White, several other live-action Disney remakes have also struggled in the recent year. For a time, there was worried that people were no longer interested in live-action remakes, but the success of Lilo & Stitch will give Disney some much-needed confidence going forward. Lilo & Stitch box office is already giving Disney confidence to make more remakes. Lilo Stitch will return to be the biggest screen soon. Earlier this year, Snow White and the managed to gross $205 million in the estimated budget of between $242 and $270 billion. And we have box office mojo that movie's emphasis on the box office performance likely lost Disney well over $100 million. Snow White box office and also probably surprised a lot of executives at Disney since that movie is based on one of the studio's most iconic animated film. However, it should be noted by that was of a controversy surrounding Snow White before the movie release. Fans were attacking both Rachel Zegler and the Gal Gadot who played the most important character in the film. Many did not the dwarf and were CGI in the movie rather than being played by the real actor. Meanwhile, Lilo Stitch faced a particularly on controversy why so many of the original animated film which came out in the 2002 did not like that Jamaya was the different in the live-action movie. But this clearly did not affect Lilo Stitch performance at the box office. After seeing how well it was performing at the box office, Disney quickly greenlit as a sequel or Lilo & Stitch. Just like the recently released live-action Mark, the upcoming Lilo & Stitch sequel will practically be the guaranteed hit for the Disney. Therefore, after the success of Lilo & Stitch, Disney will likely much more confident in the coming year. Even though The White and some other recent Disney film have underperformed at the box office, there is clearly still a desire for live-action remark. The success of the Lilo Stitch could have led to the Tangled live-action remarks being brought back in development as a response to Snow White's over poor performance and development while headed on the Tangled remark. This proves that Disney was at least temporarily counseling in The White that continue and lost many at the box office. But Lilo Stitch has made it clear that is not necessarily the case. Disney confirmed the live-action remark at the same box office. But like Lilo Stitch, it would be unwise to assume that every live-action Disney remark is going to be a huge hit for a major studio like here. Disney box office bombs and inevitable. However, it be understandable that Disney does not want to add a significant flop like Snow White and the again in the next few years. While it was completely valid of the studio to be worried, I hope that success and Lilo & Stitch does not indeed prompt Disney to resume development on the Tangled music. Tangled remarks since the animated movie it widely regarded as a modern classic. Just like the original Lilo Stitch, it's possible that the Tangled remark could be a huge success at the box office. After our through start to your year, Disney has made an impressive comeback at the box office. Aside from the Tangled remark which may or may not be made, Disney other confirmed live-action box would also be saved to the perform and well at the box office. Firstly, as mentioned as the sequel below Stitches, definitely another major success for the studio. Additionally, box like Mona, A Horikoshi and the Bambi could have to find success as well. Mona Lisa particularly, and a good potential gross of the $1 million mark in the box office after the 2024 Mona on 2 dominated the box office for many weeks and they managed to gross total $1.05 billion globally. We are Box Office Mojo also love iconic Disney animated movie like A Horikoshi and the Bambi, which means that through these films could be hit as long as there is a lot of controversy associated with them. Overall, after 2 start of the year, Disney had made impressive comeback at the box office thanks to Lilo and Stitch. The future live-action Disney remakes once again seems brighter, harder to protect, and whether upcoming live-action remakes to be a smart and hit due to the Lilo and Stitch. Disney should definitely have more confidence in their next few projects. Disney's Lilo and Stitch finally gets a digital release after crossing $1 billion box office. Lilo and Stitch has finally revealed its digital release date. The second live-action Disney remake to come out this year, Lilo and Stitch, was originally released over Memorial Day weekend. The movie was directed by Dean Fleischer Camp and feature the return of Chris and Sanders as the voice of Stitch, while introducing Maia Kealoha as Lilo. Lilo and Stitch received great reviews and instantly found a strong audience. The movie earned a 71% tomato meter from the critics and an even higher 92% and a popcorn meter from the audiences. Screener Ants Marissa gave the movie 7 out of 10 stars, calling it the Disney's best live-action remake yet. As per Disney, the Lilo and Stitch digital release date has been revealed. The movie will be available to purchase on digital starting tomorrow, July 22nd. This will be followed by a release on 4K's UHD Blu-ray and DVD next month on August 26th. The digital and physical releases will also have bonus and the features media available to purchase. These will include bloopers, deleted scenes, and the behind-the-scenes clips. What these means for the Lilo Stitch: the film got an theatrical exclusive. The digital release date means that Lilo and Stitch we have had a long period of theatrical exclusivity. The film came out on May 23rd of this year, giving it nearly 2 full months in the theaters before heading digital. This was a huge change from the original plan, which would have had the movie released on the streaming first. In this period, Lilo and Stitch has been able not only to win over critics, but it also become a huge box office hit. Just last week, the movie officially crossed the $1 billion mark, and globally at the time of the writing, and the film had a $1.007 digital purchase market will be signification. This will allow the live-action remake to continue grow in the profit even it fares out of theaters. This is good news for the future of Lilo Stitch. In reaction to the first movie success, Lilo Stitch 2A has already been confirmed and in development at Disney. If the movie has a signification end of digital presence, it will be even more likely that the second movie will be another huge box office win. How Lilo Stitch's remake update the meaning of Ohana. The Lilo Stitch live-action remake hoped to reintroduce and the audience to everything that they loved about the original movie, but it has not been without some major changes. It featured new character, a long runtime and a lovable and realistic portrayal of Stitch. Lilo and Stitch has surpassed expectation at the box office at over $600 million globally. It is poised to cross $1 billion milestone within the coming week. Some of the Lilo and Stitch changes have been controversial, of course. There have been complaints after the CGI about their changing Dr. Jumbo into a villain and about family to recognize the themes of Hawaii and invasive tourists. One of the most debatable element, however, relates to Lilo and Nani's relationship. After all, the movie ended with Lilo being sent to another guardian, while Nani purchased our marine biology and degree. Arguments about the Ohana have been present ever since the movie released, but Ohana is still present in this movie. What Ohana meant in the original Lilo and Stitch and why it was so important. In the original Lilo and Stitch movie, Ohana was an essential concept that underlined the entire film. The central theme focused on the Nani's relationship with the Lilo, especially after both of them had their parents in the advertising and the car crash. As much Lilo has caused her sister grief, Nani always contributed to the idea of Ohana. After all that, they repeated directly, Ohana means family and the family means Nani gets left behind to the forgotten. Ohana Stitch adapted to the idea as the idea of a family that would never leave him behind was what made him connected with the Lilo. Ohana was important to the entire film family because it underlined the theme of what family is. Lilo was undoubtedly a childlike little girl who caused Nani to lose her job and Ohana lose her home late in the movie. Yet, despite it all, Nani stood by her. The same was true for Stitch's relationship with the Lilo. No matter how much Keza and the cost or how many people he hurt, she always accepted him even if it was painful to do so. Ohana was important to the entire family because it underlined the theme of what family is. No matter how many problems a family faces, they should always stick together through it all. In the 2002 movie, Ohana meant that Nani could never the Lilo and Stitch the forest and cure sister because that would mean leaving her behind as a consequence. She was forced to put her life on hold while she had to raise Lilo into the responsible younger woman. The same was true for Lilo who could never leave Stitch behind nor could she let the aliens capture that tree. That element that ties Stitch's complicated history to Lilo as the aliens were a metaphor for the outsider forces that were attempting to shatter Ohana by splitting their family apart. Lilo and Stitch remarks put a new spin on the Ohana family. While the 2002 film repeatedly emphasized their literary interpretation of Ohana, the 2025 movie elected to consider an alternate meaning. The wording is exactly the same as the movie. Retards that Ohana means no one get left behind, but the meaning itself is different. Instead of playing in that family must always remain together, it allows individual to walk away from their family home without walking away from the family. Nani is able to go to their college to pursue her dreams of studying marine biology, but they still keep Lilo and the concept of the Ohana close to her heart. This message especially ties in the idea of individuals accounting for their own lives within a family group. Nani does not have to sacrifice her hopes and dreams to maintain guardianship over Lilo because she can always rely on the ground her. It takes a village to raise a child after all, and Nani not be expected to the sole force looking after Lilo. She could be a better sport by purchasing Dream Witcher. Music could help remove some of the tension that was plugged Lilo and Nani's relationship since Nani becomes her primary guardian. While Lilo and Stitch remarks update its use of Ohana, music the Lilo and Stitch remark did not necessarily need to update its use of Ohana given how popular the original movie was. Yet a popular criticism now the live-action Disney remake in that failed to appropriately adapt the era stories for the modern era. Music Snow White 2025. For instance, alerted people with dwarfism and the future wise creatures and the story type so far the dwarf films and other movies including The Little Mermaid 2023 attempted to adapt to our new expectations and earned some praise for that decision. This is new Lilo Stitch movie was attempting to do the same. After all, in the modern world, it is the Snow White surprising to see our movie demanding that Nani throw their dreams away to look after their little sister. Similarly, there is no unnecessarily a need for Nani to do so in our 2022, and when the intern was still working into the journal and the date would have been more surprising to see families conceptualizing through the online landscape. Today, family can be together even with great distance between them. Technology, even non-linear technology in the case, can help bridge the gap through video calls and other key resources. Music family is important, but family should be supportive of everything, not solely the youngest member. Despite the technology changes, the decision to update Ohana was made mostly for Nani's story. By allowing her to have the purchase and her dreams, it helped to make her more fully flesh out her character than instead of simply being apparently finger with the problems of on. It gave her a full flesh and support. That was not simply about the relationship. She was always a three-dimensional character, but these gave Nani even more depth and allowed the movie to have a better family should. Music. Be supportive to everyone, not solely the youngest member. Lilo Stitch remake isn't the still family even if that's Ohana differently. The specific about the new Lilo Stitch family dynamic will be different, but the movie is still about family. Even separated, Nani and Lilo will forever be connected as siblings. Similarly, Ohana will always be a concept that hangs over their head. Nani did not leave Lilo behind, and she's certainly not forgotten her. Instead, she will always think about her sister. While she has her purses and dreams, the two are deeply connected, but Lilo is being looked after and Nani is pursuing her dreams. Like the original Lilo and Stitch animated classic, the remake is always about the importance of found a family. Even though Cobra Bubble's story was changed, he becomes an important part of the framed family. Just as Stitch does, this movie focuses on our family, whether that means blood-related or found family. It simply adds some qualified and focus on the importance of our self-care, self-love, and pursuing our dreams in spite of complicated life circumstances. Ohana means family, and a family means that Lilo was still not left behind or forgotten. Disney's Lilo and Stitch remake makes one Nani change that is even worse than a controversial ending. Disney live-action Lilo and Stitch remake made a lot of controversial changes to the 2025 animated classic, and while none as a change have been the subject of a lot of discussion, many viewers missed out on of the most important changes to her story. The 2025 version of the Nani is so incredibly chilly and different from the 2002 counterpart, with her having different motivations and the different conclusion at the end of Lilo and Stitch. While this ending has upset many, it changed in from much earlier in the Lilo and Stitch remake, something in the strange path that the film was going down. While 2025 Lilo and Stitch is faithful to the original winner compared to other Disney live-action remake, it still made a lot of change. Unfortunately, almost all of DC changes are for the worse. Many of the changes surrounded the character of Jumba, who becomes a main villain of the film. Other characters like Cobra and the social worker are either given a bigger role or completely added, while the original movie characters like Captain Agantu are completely cut. However, Nani giving Lilo away to the neighbors at the end of the film is the remake's most conversation and discussion. It is not the only controversial one. Nani takes Lilo to adopt Stitch in the original movie, but she is not involved in the remake. One of the most shocking changes in the live-action Lilo Stitch remake has to do with Nani's involvement in the adaptation and the Stitch. In the original film, Lilo is incredibly lonely when Stitch crashes on Earth. Lilo believes that it is a shooting star, with her praying for a friend, Nani. Overhearing what her deciding to take action. The next day Nani takes Lilo to the animal shelter. She agrees to later Lilo adopt a dog, hoping it to fulfill Lilo's wish. This is Lilo meets Stitcher with the sisters to adopt him, leading it to the rest of the movie. Things do down very different in the remake. In 2025 film, Lilo still pray for a friend after seeing the shooting star. However, this is consented to Lilo's adaptation of Stitch and Starter Toto. The neighbors of Nani and Lilo later overhear Lilo talking about needing a friend. So, Toto decided to take Lilo to the animal shelter. While with Toto, Lilo adopts Stitch. She takes Stitch home, surprising Nani with a new dog. Nani is incredibly unhappy about Stitch adaptation, although she eventually warmed to him by the end of the film. Nani not being involved in the Stitch adaptation take away from her love of Lilo. The decision to not have Nani be involved in the Stitch's adaptation in the one it takes away and from her love of Lilo in the original film. Nani is adapting the secretly answered Lilo prayers. These shows how much she cares about her sister, as the recognizes that Lilo is lonely and actively tries to fix these problem. Nani is already incredibly busy with her having to work and take care of Lilo. Getting a dog would undoubtedly add to her stress. Music. However, Nani still decided to do these anyway, and because she loves Lilo. While not having Nani make the decision to get a Lilo dog, this layer of love is removed. Nani's frustration with Stitch do not mean too much anymore. She was previously putting with this frustration because of her love for the Lilo, whereas she now has to deal with these because she has been saddled with Anna and want a dog. This is a bad choice. A Nia that has a diverse to Lilo's relationship in a film that proposed to more focused on that the original was. Total taking Nani's role make the controversial ending make more sense. Although this change is undoubtedly a bad one, it does a Lilo and Stitch a conversational ending in a way. Since Total make the decision to get Lilo our dog, it shows that does really love her. It is odd for her sign and Nani to take care of dog, but nevertheless it shows her that cares about Lilo, so it makes sense for her to be the one of that Nani leaves Lilo with. She goes to college. It does not work as an ending, and it would be hard to make this ending work no matter what. Music. And however it at least a positive in favor on the Lilo and Stitch remark. Review Lilo and Stitch 2025. I remember going to see Lilo and Stitch when it was first released in theaters quite widely. In fact, I was 11-year old. It was summer break June 2002 just out the side of Atlanta, Georgia, and Lakewood has a health. My mum, my brother and I joined up with one of my friend, her younger siblings and their mom to go watch the newest animated Disney joint at the Loews, Music, and a Regal Theatre. Although I was not especially thrilled as one of the was not about the princess and therefore not relevant to my interest, but I really enjoyed the film quite a bit more than he anticipated. I also remember being surprised by Like Mike. When you may recall the movie starring rapper Lil Bow Wow down on He's a Lucky Boy in Hearts and the Magic Tablets and the talent after the finding an old pair of the Michael Jordan's sneakers. My friend's mama snuck us all onto the auditorium and Thea screened things that one immediately after the Lilo and Stitch ended. Went the possible and most criminal act one have never engaged in my life. None of that really matter as back to aid in my illustration of that despite pauses in our tangible not delete connection to the original movie my comes with that new live action about the least that Disney still make and never-ending cycle of the nostalgic by media. He noted that reasons other than the maker and factor that the chat is technicolor and the Mike when versus screenplay make his numerous alterations with I watch Nani Sydney Elizabeth act on the young woman fresh out of high school who dreams her father going to school for marine biology but the committee to being here a 6-year-old sister Lilo's Mike Holly and Under the Guardian in the wake of their parents' death. Lilo and Lilo's new adopted pet Stitch a blue koala-like Carline experiment from the planet and the total masquerading as a dog in the tracker. Everything about the girls are carrying casters and expression style Mia should be rooting for the family to all become a family of 3 and your Theo CGI state does not match strangely and enough his very real surroundings with the Nani or Lilo reach out her pet in her clearly that they're touching is something that is actually there. Ohana means family may be a pure of heartless message but it's sandwiched inside a projector that largely fails to pass through everything but cheap. It is rather disappointing that the chance charming as Lilo and Stitch it is likes the imagination of the original famous especially considering that the masses are directed by the Dean Fleischer Camp the creator of the Mitchells vs. the Machines shows on the short and director of the subsequent feature film of the same name that are such a clever and creative melding of life towards and the with animals and character that not say this Lilo and Stitch is not still consistently engaged or not does not have to any material to have appeal to both children who will certainly giggly at the slapstick action of the Stitcher and related to Lilo's status on the outside among the viewers and adults. This film starts and more heavily towards Nani and the adult responsibilities she facing that despite her almost being a kid herself Nani making her film debut in the truly and adorably on the sunny enthusiasm providing the perfect counterbalance to the experiment and the pragmatism which may be a striking point of the sum among some her father devastation from the original story that the Nani and Lilo's older neighbor Amy Hill playing a character original to this film, being the person who has allowed to Lilo dog Stitch into action in this film that already strain Nani as a woman and opposed to even after witnessing a lonely and Lilo wish on our star actually Stitches crashing a spaceship for a friend. Does these a slightly different foregrounded approach to Nani still what to drag from the narrative all our sense of racism yes but it flashes out the sister relationship meaning and always without losing sight of the fact that Nani still above all else want to do what best for Lilo. More encouraging and the fact that Lilo and Stitch that is set in the film in Hawaii and one of the most beautiful location on the planet and yet still looks and blame to spy some. Music a minimal effort to draw a disconnection between the island native and the inhabitant and the natural landscape and a tourist inhabited resort and the sporter that pop along the beach can amusing a moment at the start of the film from a Lilo sneaking into the off-3 sport to use their pool while she is Stitch erect and hog one of the resort launcher the overly cartoonish and the linear character always feel like that just a walk in the entirely different movie the initial in the transaction from the space of Under the Sea is truly jarring a Lilo and Stitch may miss some Kimdia points by the having the liners drive Jumbo California and the Agent Pleakley Billy Magnussen that human for the arrival of the Earth to hunt it down a Stitch for the Grand Councilwoman voiced by the Honor Wheatington and the opposite to doing and observed this guy but the change affected be survived the live action format better while still there allowing to the sound solid flat of the water humor and the physical comedy. Some of that expanded plot that the tropical of Disney makers clinker however like the Sepple and writing Cobra Bubble who is in the animated movie in the outwardly Nani and Lilo social worker but secretly CIA agent into the distinct character the social worker Mr. Cocky the Carrier, who voiced Nani in the original movie and the subsequent sequels, and the Snowflakes and the agents Cobra Bubbles Courtyard B Vans. At the least the notes of the original film are largely unrated and actually rather sweet, like here the casting of Kara and Justin Knie, who voiced Nani's friend David in the original movie, and the smart role Tejo Sanders of the voice Stitch, as well, a writer and the director of the original film. Returning to the voice Stitcher, again employing the same as the president, and the soundtrack of the Academy School Children Chorisa, who performed the Hawaiian and the reclosed right of the original film. Oh, now the board a new track and a new version of that format, and the song of decent movie, and the film itself is sweet too. Despite some listed and the serviceably family entertainment who had in the right place, or maybe it noted this family is large, made to make a bucker of the brand familiarity, not for my Arctic married also Lilo and Stitch I say not already, and the moral bankrupt as many of the temporary, as even though while is a 2021 I was trying to month the directed by Mike here with that film original writer. When we live in a society governed by the captation, nothing is guarded. Lilo and Stitch is now playing in theaters, and a time 108 minute and rated PG. Lilo and Stitch, Disney's 2002 animated a film about the little Hawaiian girl Woe's boyfriend and the lion who looks like he. Blue Collar was written and directed by Cherry Sanders and Dean Sander. The UA go on to create another heartwarming animated film about a human and a fantastic creature. How to Train Your Dragon both have live action adaptation of this year and the 2025 a, while not quite justifying yet an author IP expansion and the maintenance, their sincere and engineering performance as a beautiful setting, chocolates and kumja accelerating surface scenes, and the touching example of Ohana, which means a family including founder family. The original most ardent fan will be appreciate the appearance from the member of cast including the Tia Karira, the original Nani, Lilo's and big sister Jason Scottley, the original Davida Nani's friend, and my Hill excellent as our kind of neighbor named Tota, and following her role in the original as Anna, absent-minded shop owner. Sanderson returned as well against and again voicing the reborn aligned Lilo's and renamed Stitches, and like the 2002 A version, this one has a soundtrack featuring classic songs by Elvis Presley. On a planet far, far away, a multi-eyed scientist named Jumba Jokiba Galafianakis had a creature here called the 626, designed to destroy the planet leader Ohana wedding home, and the continuing the blum ascent of the original Zgatu, and the order the danger house a mutant and destroyed when it escapes headed for the Earth. She sent Jumba and her planet Earth experts Screeve and what I play kid sweetly on Billy Magnussen to get him back. Once of the Earth they conventionally disguise themselves as a human who look like our Galafianakis and the Magnussen. By that time the 626 has been captured by Dog Catcher and has broken out of his cagea in the pond. He sees the dog is posted and given her a hug. He brings the home and names him Stitches. This film visually gives our more attention of Nani than the 2002 A version. This is placed with Never and the Harm forth with the sad and Elizabetha and Roman. And Nani is more than our worried but devoted to characters, and she has a bad dream that to conflict. A welcome addition in the Hilya Toto as the open-hearted grandmother Ofar Nani, so fresh take traveling friend and a possible romantic, and trust David Capiau and the droid Courtney by Vince by Playa Cobra Bubbles in a line investigation, a federal agent with a gold earring, and audience have specially since 2002 about the whether Lilo is one of the autistic spectrum, because she seems to have trouble recognizing social cues and has some possibly obsessive odd beliefs like a fish under the control she rather. Water is not an okay element of both film is how caring of someone that she has. The Lilo feels so like sharply the loss of her parent, and again perspective on the responsibility of her teenage and the sisters struggling with in trying to prove the social worker carrier that she can take care of Lilo. A Stitch to movie from a chosen genre of identify with a movie monster to someone who wants to love and be loved to the part of Anna. Children new Theo story enjoy the sun goes out hammered of spectacles and mid trends, and Theo raising them that family is of all kind of including those who can be devoted. Oh now the idea of 100 active days of far pleasure time bring it launch a touch of the tender-hearted sensibility of this American entry which was on. He is carefully about Theo prospecting the most beloved detail of far the original but making it more inclusive, and my first choice will be a new story with a character we have noted before. My second choice will be imagining our early work. Do many miss that last part, but my third choice here would be a nice pleasanty sweet movie here that bears to trouble into fans of the original with a new thoughtful expansions, and that is just what these is. Lilo and Stitch review. Ohana means a family in the Disney's live-action doa that barely strays from its source. When Lilo and Stitch opened in 2002, the Disney marketing department and Chikia treated its static character, a shape-shifting alien, by Open and Thea Studios rehashed the spectral counseling by the Chinese standards and the Diana de Blois. The reinvented original story was not based on the beloved classic like the Pinocchios or the Aladdin and offered nothing even remotely resembling a princess, just a lonely Hawaiian and often the unreal addition to Hera family. An aptly end of the movie as a teaser poster features a Disney iconic, a Disney character calling in horror in other disrespective new course. To say that Big Ear Blue creator eventually found a place would be an understatement. 2 decades of Thea Stitch rank among the Disney most ubiquitous and character. Especially from a merchandising perspective. The Stitch plush and mug of it can be seen on the back of the plush toys, t-shirts, and wall mugs of all sizes. So it was only a matter of time before the studio's Owens table remarked it around that translating Lilo and Stitch to live action, which director Dean Fleischer Camp the Marshal chose as our hand with a sensibility to faithful a border on dry. And somehow Lilo and Theo Stitch has lost the unpredictable sense of the artist in the relating for all intents and the purpose. It could be a harvest that kept in displaying less in other common, which is such a blatant Disney reimagining as Beauty and the Beast and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That is the unbashfully hokier and wilder movie the studio wants it toned in the live action, the Shaggy Dogger and that don't get, except where the troublemaker is the concern. The Stitcher remains animated while practically all of the other character play ada people including Zach Galifianakis and the Billy Magnussen in a pair of greater physical comedy performances as two bumbling aliens in human disguise. Yeah. I here again have the nose gelling and of old school head work like a Mary Poppins and the Pete's Dragon, in which a colourful 2D cartoons element appear inside the living breathing sectors. All of the designs with the photo elements in our mind today computer generated co-stars seldom look convincing, result in these either flash nor fall effect is seen in 2003 The Little Mermaid with their sidekicks and he made the animated films or and bring we all replace with our slightly replant CG stand aliens and we would never actually think if it, we have to decision to make the abdomen under the bubbles stylers look the Sanders a signature cartoon style in the favor of the real world. There is a whole bunch of the philosophical question to consider, like how should Stitch exactly? So much depend on the striking the right balance of the adorable and the animated. It had never occurred to me that Evla and the loving alien might be quite far, for example in the original Stitcher and Jumbo to hear to talk the otherwise he came across fairly sleek and if it's called might have a consistency somewhere between the seal of the Joey and Barbara Fleischer Camp. Eventually Imagineer Stitches are being closer to Cola, which makes sense. I suppose the Stitch just with a direct inspiration on their standard character design, though it somehow seems off it the same looking quite to Cody. Well, audiences go for it what Lilo and Stitch it is favor in the emotionally solid blueprint provided by Sanders and Dean Blois screenplay, which bring everything back to the family update and slightly expanded here by Chris Sanders. Maia Van was among the added detail in the 23-minute longer version in the film surfacing sequence and the slightly more of the social worker played by Thea Carrier to do. The later dolls and Thea risk that Lilo could be separated from her older sister Nani Satinstein with music more splattering than a parallel the Hula universe gives, showing the Rose and Thea age of Mike Coulter in the casting a year-old child actor to play Lilo's unfortunate case of the miscasting. Lissa is a character who should be nearly as frantic Stitch as the embodied by Little Miss Perfect type. Instead in Coulter's hands Lilo seems more likely to cross her than chase the set of the restaurant to where her older sister Nani Satinstein at work. One of the key plot points that involve in a human character all of the UFO savvy FBI agent Cobra bubbles the country that Vans misreading the stitches of hire exotic dog by law leader to adopt him from the local animal shelter. This why the story is told. Much of the comedy depends on audience being private to the world created extraterrestrial black versus and the while Lilo and the other human character have no idea of the Stitch at full destructive potential. Meanwhile, his made sensitive creature Jumbo Jokibo and the Earth expert Pleakley Bill Magnussen in hot pursuit they're looking for the right moment to snatch Stitch and take him back to their leader the Grander Councilwoman H.A. Tilda Curran seems to Vella. I was more satisfied with the CG look of all these aligned character plus our bright pink and crew member who looks like an arthropod sings an ox dress either than it with the Stitch who simply does not feel partners and a Warner Brothers individually cracked around it to make a CG Looney Tunes the movie. I hope to stick through these Signature expansions and the poses instead of trying to make the Bugs and Bunny and the Tasmanian Devil look like real mammals that the flesh here can't trace. Stitch. Anyone who's ever had a pet has spent countless hours starting and toward the animal BDISA secretary everything micros and switches and spring in the hope of interest being that the creature might be thinking Lilo. Stitch impressing that kind of subtlety and rather than give in the audiences the birth extra getting expression that make animation so satisfying. This one the reason I don't think these live action or cover versions will have too much of the shelf life they caught in the trend where visual effects make it possible to see an imagination handwriting vision with wide in the reality but over and you are few chance in trend in the original the medium that one dreams work with the experiment with another Sanders and deeper blow is reported how to train a dragon which means the shark cannot be drowned for the pipeline. Lilo Stitcher is not the embarrassment and few of these remarks as a sense of made by far too much gear instead depending of love for the original they plan to chip away at entertaining and the magical visual world founded in the company. Lilo Stitch 2025 reviewer sensitized a live action imagination of its original. Fast facts about the Lilo Stitch. What? A live action remake of the Disney 2002 animation about the cheeky blue alien who befriends a lonely Hawaiian girl. Directed by Chris Sanders starring Sydney Agudong and Maya Rudolph as Zaki Galifianakis, Billy Magnussen, Tigara and Hannah Waddingham. Released in cinemas now are likely to make you feel like watching the original or hanging your sister. For a Disney it was a step away from its usual style. It looked at sacrificed a linear story and transported it to modern have and it explored the everyday struggle of the people who live there. With hand-drawn 2D animation in the distinctive style of Chris Sanders last year directed the Oscar-nominated film The Wild Robot. It had a fresh look that was new for the story, including brown faces and larger bodies. It was also one of the first mainstreaming films to platform and celebrate Hawaiian culture, putting locals at the forefront rather than using the archipelago as our cheap backdrop, and critically, it subtly and correctly the ways in which a mass over-tourism has affected native islands, and a live-action remake set in that time was a chance to take the elements that made the original groundbreaking and add layers of modernity to them. Maybe Lilo and Nani are surrounded by her bumps now, or Officer Stitch Kana attempts his dream of destroying a larger city given how built up a modern Honolulu is. Agent Pleakley as a drag rendition of our Chapel well-run song, but instead of adding to the original cultural asymmetry, the new film completely cuts this element out. In this latest release to follow the apparent new recipe for our modern kids movie, censored everything that could possibly offend anyone. They replaced the personalities and a hand-drawn animation with expansive via photo release and CGI. Add in the Lily slapstick and a Bruno Mars song, and you have to got yourself a hit. What is Lilo and Stitch about? Both films follow the same initial plot. Nani has been her assist to Lilo's guardian since their parents died and is struggling with a social worker and not going well, and the separation seems imminent. Meanwhile, apart from the Earth, Experiment 626, who was held in the letter by Jumba and made scientist evil genius, has escaped. He soon land on Theo's sister's home on the island, and Theo Jumbo is tasked with the recapturing his monster, aided by the Pleakley as our self-proclaimed odd experiment, with a Lilo and adopted Experiment 626 and named him Stitch. The real maybe begins. What made Lilo and Stitch significant was first Nani and Lilo 2002 trying their best on their island home overrun by the invasive species tourists and then also a line in the original opening scene Lilo snapped a photo of the subtrim of the tourists and later discovered the kids' expensive rate so far these on her bedroom. While this was well ahead of the public discourse and sending Western holiday make our habit of the photographing for ignorant children. We also need Nani and Lilo's random house and how Nani's only employment in the service and industry. I just have to answer phones and the attribution tells the hotel manager. Buta what was the original criticize the remarks qualifies at the play kids talks in the visual hotel bubbles bathe the holding and the ocean while Lilo frequently enjoys the beach house and a hot with the resort for children closer to advertisement than quarters. While hand with culture is still reflected with the local behind the script and none of the cultural commentary remains that movie has impact with it. One of the biggest questions fans had before the release of the live-action Lilo Stitch was whether it would keep the unforgettable music that made the original film so special. Thankfully, many of the beloved musical elements return. Songs like Mel Kalicamaka once again capture the warm Hawaiian atmosphere, While the iconic performances by the Kamemia School's children's chorus have been faithfully recreated, the filmmakers worked closely with cultural experts to ensure that the traditional hula sequences reflected their true cultural and spiritual significance. Some of the choreography was recreated almost frame by frame from the animated film, preserving the authenticity and emotion of the original. The new adaptation also features real on-screen hula performances and welcomes back the voices of the Kamemia School's children's chorus and youth chorus. Their return, 25 years after the original film, brings the story full circle. The film also honors the legacy of Hawaiian music through the inclusion of songs associated with the late Israel brothers Kamakaua, helping the adaptation remain deeply connected to Hawaiian culture. One of the most touching moments from the original film also returns. Nani once again sings Aloha e Circumflexo to Lilo during an emotional scene when they fear they may be separated. Written in 1878 by Queen Laliuokalani, the last reigning monarch of Hawaii, the song remains a powerful symbol of love, farewell, and hope. Its inclusion adds emotional weight while honoring an important part of Hawaiian history and heritage. The live-action film also expands on the central theme of E Circumflexo Ohana, which means family. The famous line, E Circumflexo Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten, remains an essential part of the story. However, the remake broadens the meaning of family beyond blood relatives, emphasizing the importance of friends, neighbors, and the wider community. While the original focused primarily on an unconventional family, the new film highlights how an entire community can come together to support one another. Not every change is equally successful. The CGI version of Stitch looks fantastic and stays remarkably faithful to his animated counterpart. However, Jumba and Pleakley spend most of the movie disguised as humans, reducing many of the humorous alien moments that fans loved in the original. Jumba is also portrayed as a more straightforward villain, losing some of the quirky charm and comedic personality that made him memorable. The setting has also changed slightly. Instead of focusing mainly on Kauai's quiet natural landscapes, the remake spends more time in busier, more developed locations, creating a different atmosphere. While this gives the film a fresh visual style, it also makes Stitch's struggle to hide on a remote Hawaiian island feel a little less convincing. The remake gives Nani a more developed storyline by exploring her dream of studying marine biology. She struggles to balance her personal ambitions with the responsibility of raising Lilo, adding more depth to her character. Although these additions provide extra background, some viewers may feel that the script loses a bit of the emotional warmth, humor, and subtle storytelling that made the original so memorable. One of the film's most enjoyable new additions is Jumba's portal gun, which creates gateways to almost any location. It becomes a fun, creative, and non-violent storytelling device that adds excitement throughout the adventure. However, many longtime fans will likely miss one of Pleakley's defining traits from the animated version: his love of wearing women's clothing and makeup while disguised as a human. This running gag continued throughout the animated sequels and television series, making Pleakley a fan favorite. Over the years, many viewers even embraced the character as a gender-fluid icon. Director Dean Fleischer Camp revealed that he tried to include this aspect of Pleakley's personality, but it was ultimately removed from the final film. At nearly 2 hours long, the live-action remake is significantly longer than the original animated film, which ran for just under 90 minutes. While the additional characters and storylines help expand the narrative, the pacing occasionally feels uneven. Younger viewers with shorter attention spans may find parts of the film slower than expected. Like many recent Disney live-action remakes, Lilo Stitch, 2025, is enjoyable but doesn't always capture the same magic as the original. Even so, it remains an entertaining family adventure with strong performances, impressive visual effects, and heartfelt emotional moments. For parents looking for a fun family movie on a rainy weekend or during the summer holidays, it's an easy recommendation despite its flaws. The live-action remake continues Disney's long line of reimagined animated classics. Although the results of these remakes have often been mixed, Lilo Stitch stands among the stronger entries, joining successful adaptations such as Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, and The Lion King. While some of the original's rough edges have been softened to appeal to a broader audience, the heart of the story remains intact. Unlike some Disney remakes that suffer from unnecessary padding, Lilo Stitch occasionally feels as though it could have benefited from a few additional minutes to let its emotional moments breathe. Certain scenes move quickly, preventing the film from fully exploring themes of grief, loss, and healing with the same emotional impact as the original. At its core, However, the movie remains a fun and heartfelt summer adventure. Maia Kealoha delivers an outstanding performance as Lilo, bringing energy, innocence, and genuine emotion to every scene. Stitch is as lovable and mischievous as ever, thanks to excellent CGI animation. The supporting cast also performs exceptionally well, with Sydney Elizabeth Agudong giving a strong portrayal of Nani. Veteran actors Amy Hill and Jason Scott Lee make welcome appearances, adding warmth and authenticity to the film. Together, the cast helps create a remake that, while not perfect, succeeds as an entertaining and heartfelt adaptation of a beloved Disney classic. Disney's live-action Lilo Stitch succeeds in one area above all else: Stitch himself. Thanks to the collaboration between Disney, visual effects artists, and the original creative team, Stitch makes the transition from animation to live-action remarkably well. At no point does he feel like a digital effect standing apart from the cast. Instead, he feels like a fully realized character who naturally belongs in every scene. Disney deserves praise for bringing him to life in a way that feels authentic, especially considering that many previous live-action remakes have struggled to capture the magic of their animated counterparts. However, the adaptation makes several creative changes that don't always work. The screenplay removes, alters, or shortens many memorable moments from the original film. Characters such as Cobra Bubbles receive reduced roles, while the comedic chemistry of Billy Magnussen and Zach Galifianakis provides some entertaining moments but never fully replaces what was lost. These changes don't ruin the movie, but they rarely improve upon the original. Instead of feeling fresh or inspired, many of the new ideas simply remind viewers how effective the original storytelling was. Although Stitch continues to deliver plenty of fun and chaotic moments, the emotional heart of the film doesn't land with the same impact. One of the reasons the 2002 animated classic remains so beloved is its ability to balance humor with genuine emotion. This remake often holds back during those key emotional scenes, preventing them from reaching the heartfelt heights that made the original so memorable. Director Dean Fleischer Camp clearly respects the source material and makes an honest effort to recreate its magic. While he has previously demonstrated his talent for blending emotion and imagination, this adaptation lacks the distinctive spark that elevated the original. The result is a pleasant remake rather than an unforgettable one. Viewers who haven't seen the animated classic may enjoy it on its own, but longtime fans will likely notice that several small yet meaningful moments are missing. Even so, Lilo Stitch, 2025, remains a solid family film. The biggest criticism is that this remake feels largely unnecessary. Disney continues its trend of turning beloved animated classics into live-action films, and this may be one of its most unnecessary adaptations yet. Unlike fairy tales such as Snow White, which have been retold countless times, Lilo Stitch is a uniquely original story that became a modern classic because of its emotional storytelling, memorable characters, and distinctive visual style. The 2002 film stood out through its beautiful hand-drawn animation, watercolor-inspired backgrounds, and heartfelt story about loneliness, family, and belonging. While the live-action version faithfully follows the same story, it rarely captures the artistic charm or emotional depth that made the original so special. To the film's credit, Stitch himself is beautifully realized. His fuzzy blue design, expressive face, playful movements, and mischievous personality transfer seamlessly into the live-action world. He remains just as lovable as ever and is easily the highlight of the movie. The human cast also delivers strong performances. Maia Kealoha brings warmth, energy, and innocence to Lilo, while Sydney Elizabeth Agudong gives Nani emotional depth and sincerity. Although they naturally differ from the animated performances, both actresses create believable versions of these beloved characters. Unfortunately, the filmmaking surrounding them often feels less inspired. From the opening sequence featuring Jumba, the Galactic Council, and Experiment 626, the movie closely recreates scenes from the original but rarely captures their pace or excitement. Much of the action relies on rapid editing and heavy visual effects that lack the clear visual storytelling of the animated film. For viewers unfamiliar with the original, some scenes may even feel confusing. The story itself remains largely unchanged. Lilo and Nani continue struggling to stay together after losing their parents, while social services threatens to separate them unless Nani can find stable employment. Stitch arrives on Earth, where Lilo mistakes him for a dog and adopts him, leading to the same central journey about family, acceptance, and healing. However, many of the new additions feel unnecessary. Rather than expanding the story in meaningful ways, The remake often replaces the original's creative charm with larger visual effects and broader comedy. Even with impressive CGI, some scenes feel overly dependent on green screen environments, making certain performances seem disconnected from their surroundings. As Stitch gradually becomes part of Lilo and Nani's broken family, the movie still delivers several touching and funny moments. Yet almost every emotional scene feels slightly less powerful than it did in the animated version. Despite adding more than 20 minutes to the running time, the film introduces surprisingly few memorable new ideas. Most of its best moments are simply recreations of scenes audiences have already loved for over 2 decades. The original film portrayed Lilo and Nani's grief, frustration, and love with remarkable honesty. Their emotional struggles gave the story its lasting impact. While the remake explores these themes again and even gives Nani a somewhat different ending, it never reaches the same emotional depth. The 2002 Lilo Stitch comfortably stands alongside modern family classics such as E.T. the Extraterrestrial and The Iron Giant because of its originality, emotional storytelling, and timeless themes. The 2025 version is enjoyable, visually impressive, and anchored by an excellent rendition of Stitch, but it ultimately feels like a respectful recreation rather than a truly meaningful reimagining. Fans may appreciate revisiting these beloved characters, but the original animated film remains the definitive version.